economic strategy. Ross Gill from SQW is here to provide the update. And we also have council lead officers in attendance who may want to come in after his presentation. So over to Ross, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Afternoon, everybody. I don't know if Jason, did you want to give a few words by way of introduction, or do you want me to go straight into it?
Happy for you to go straight into it. Thank you, Ross.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just share my screen. If you bear with me. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that. Just by way of introduction, as the chairman said, I'm Ross Gill from SQW, and we're an economic development consultancy firm essentially. And you may recall that some time ago, back in 2013, we worked with colleagues in South West Wales on the then economic regeneration strategy. We were reappointed in late 2021 to do some work on the South West Wales Regional Economic Delivery Plan, which replaces that earlier strategy. And what I'm going to do is give you a bit of an overview, a bit of a reminder, if you like, of the contents of the REDP and its purpose, and then just to give a bit of a sort of an introduction to the discussion, really, around how the region's doing 18 months on. So this is what we were asked to do. Many of you will recall that document in red there, which was completed substantively in September 2021, although not adopted by the CJC until March of last year. We were asked when we were appointed to prepare a strategy that looked towards 2030. That's the statement that we have in it, to set out the region's ambitions for a resilient, broad-based and sustainable economy. I think perhaps consciously when you commissioned this, you asked it to be an economic delivery plan rather than a strategy as such. And it was always intended that it should be accompanied by an action plan, which I'll say a bit more about in a minute. When we did this, we were appointed by the 4 local authorities working together with Welsh Government, and we reported in the course of this via the regeneration directors from the local authorities. But we produced this document in parallel with the regional economic framework that was led by Welsh Government, and essentially the regional economic framework takes the strategic content of this plan, really. So what we produced largely informed the Welsh Government's document. The approach we took is set out here on this slide. So we started off in early 2022 with a evidence and landscape review, which is a separately published document, which we can obviously share with you if anybody wants to dig into that. Obviously, when you produce that sort of evidence base, it's only ever right at the time at which you produce it, and evidence moves on quite quickly as new data sets become available and as Welsh Government and UK Government policy changes, etc. But we wanted, as part of that, to make sure that we started afresh with the new Regional Economic Delivery Plan. Obviously, we had produced that earlier version back in 2013, 2014, but we wanted to start from a fresh approach, if you like. So we produced that evidence base. That then fed into the core strategy document, the main economic framework. And then off the back of that, we produced a third document, which we called the Project Pipeline Supplement, which has never been published as such. So while the REDP is a publicly available document on your collective websites, the Project Pipeline Supplement was only ever intended for you as individual local authorities. And what we did in that, working with colleagues, was to collate a series of project proposals which are at various different stages of development. Some of them had quite well advanced business cases, some of them were at the much earlier stage of thinking. But we set out within that a short summary business case for each project on the basis that they can be taken off the shelf, reviewed, perhaps developed in response to funding bids, etc., as time goes on. This is the plan on a page, if you like. So this is the punchline from the Regional Economic Delivery Plan. We set out 3 broad overarching ambitions for a region that is resilient and sustainable, enterprising and ambitious, balanced and inclusive. You could say, well, you know, which region wouldn't want to be all of those things? And that's absolutely true. They are, if you like, fairly generic statements, if you like. But nonetheless, the importance of having them there and the fact that each one of them is an equal third is quite important. This isn't purely a strategy for maximising gross value added. It's a strategy for doing that in the context of a net zero environment and in the context of an economy that you want to be a more inclusive one. Within that context, we set out 3 missions within the plan. The first around establishing South West Wales as a UK leader in renewable energy and the net zero economy. The second around building a strong, resilient and embedded business base. And the third around growing and sustaining that experience offer. I'll say a bit more about those in the next few slides. But we quite consciously focused on those 3 missions following the consultation process and working with yourselves, rather than going down perhaps a more traditional route of having, you know, a section on workforce skills, a section on the business base, a section on infrastructure. We did this on purpose because what we wanted to capture in those missions were something that was quite distinctively South West Wales and distinctive to the region and responding to the consultation and the steer that we had from you. Moving into the three missions, this is what they say, and each of them contains a series of high-level action areas. They're areas in which action can take place. We were conscious when we produced the REDP that it is intended to last for the rest of the decade. We didn't want to set out very granular actions within it, which would very quickly date and become irrelevant. So we wanted to identify those areas for action that will continue to have relevance over that time and which are also grounded in the evidence. I won't sort of read all of those out in detail because they're all in the plan, but we started quite consciously within this one from that first bullet point there around building capacity and expertise to maximise our renewable energy and net zero potential. The observation that's made within the REDP is that the scale of the assets and emerging assets in South West Wales is nationally and potentially internationally significant, but equally some of them are still at the potentially relatively early stages of commercial viability. We'll still need quite a lot of feasibility work to be done. There's always the risk that other parts of the UK and indeed other parts of Western Europe have also identified this mission as being one that is key to them. And unless the capability is there to galvanise action to move things forward, there's the risk that you could move from being a sort of an early mover to missing the boat and being a late mover, and that kind of underpins some of the actions and the narrative that we have within the strategy. The second mission focuses on building a strong, resilient and embedded business base. The key behind this is twofold, really. The first is around developing the region's innovation offer, and we talk within it about the strengths that the universities have and the strength of some of those university business links, the very substantial weight of innovative activity that's taking place in parts of the region. But we also highlighted within the strategy that inevitably the innovative core, if you like, or the innovative elements of the economy is never going to be big enough to create the jobs and the quality of jobs that the region needs. You sort of need to hold both in mind, really. There's supporting what you might call innovation within the regional economy, but then there's also developing that locally based indigenous business base, enabling it to be more sustainable, enabling it to grow incrementally, and the two sort of need to run in parallel. And the third was around growing and sustaining the South West Wales experience offer. We thought quite carefully about what we meant by experience offer, and we didn't just mean visitor economy, although visitor economy is part of that, but the experience offer is also what the universities bring. as kind of export-like industries, if you like, in bringing that student population in. It's also the leisure and creative economy that services the local market, as well as that which services a visitor economy. And it's also those things which are sort of embedded within the local economy, which make all of that work, which to some extent overlaps with the land-based economy, to some extent overlaps with the food and drink industry, etc. So it's about how that works together, and also how that works in such a way that is sustainable for the residents of South West Wales as well. Within the plan, we set out a number of sort of performance indicators. Here are some of them. There were some others in there as well, which are less easy to measure, but these are the ones for which there are measures, if you like, 18 months on. The caveat around all of this is that this type of local data isn't really very reliable over a short time series. So you can believe annual GVA data if you want, but the reality is that it's estimated. So measuring it from 1 year to the next doesn't necessarily tell you much. If you measure it over 10 years, it tells you quite a lot, but the short time series isn't necessarily all that helpful. But nonetheless, in the spirit of producing something which is looking at this 18 months on, this is where we are. So an increase in GVA, an increase in productivity, a small increase, but that's consistent with where we've been before in workforce qualifications, increase in business starts and stocks, in an overall stock of businesses, small decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, but still much higher than the UK. But of course, it's higher than the UK because of Tata, and that's basically what that differential consists of, really. The area that is potentially concerning, but also I'm not sure whether we necessarily entirely believe, is that diminution in the number of jobs within the region. That's what the data says. So that's what the ONS data tells us. We need to review these things on an annual basis, obviously, and some of that reduction might be due to the way that things were still being recorded as furlough came to an end, because of course in 2021 we were still in the pandemic period. So I wouldn't necessarily read too much into this, other than it's helpful to keep monitoring this on an annual basis, because it does give you a dashboard broadly of where the region's going, and we can augment that with our own sort of understanding of how the economy is doing in the real world. And then finally, just a bit about the changing context, I guess, since we started on this work in 2021. How have things changed? In some ways, there are some pressures that we didn't know about when we produced the REDP. The outlook for UK growth was more robust at that time than it is now, partly because by the end of 2021, most forecasters were anticipating a pretty sharp bounce back from COVID. Of course, we did have a sharp bounce back from COVID, but the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, cost of living pressures, etc., have dampened a lot of that down. We know about those cost of living pressures and how that impacts on communities, on overall investment confidence. We know about the pressure that you'll all be facing in terms of public sector resources and so on. And we know perhaps even more now than we did a few weeks ago about some of those industrial restructuring risks. On the other hand, quite a lot has happened within the region in that time, both in terms of the designation of Freeport's, of the Celtic Freeport status for Pembrokeshire and Neath for Talbot. I think we're probably on we still have a steady policy context in respect of net zero, certainly from Welsh government, from UK government in a macro sense we do, although despite the recent sort of changes of timescales and so on. We've seen good progress in bringing forward some major projects with private sector leadership, some of the initiatives that are coming forward in Swansea City Centre, for example, as well. And then there's the partnership approach that's being taken forward through both the City Deal and the CJC. When we produced the Regional Economic Delivery Plan, we referred to the CJC as in the process of being established, but at that point it hadn't been established. It was in its very early days. So that's how things have changed, and you'll have a better knowledge than I do of how things have changed in a more practical sense on the ground. But that was really just a bit of a snapshot of where we are to introduce discussion. I'm sure you'll all have comments that you want to make around that and the direction of travel, but it's probably useful to keep that under review as projects come forward and just to keep track of how the region's going over time.
Thank you very much, Ross. Thanks for that presentation. Before I go to members for any questions, can I just ask any officers, do they want to come in to put a bit of extra information into that presentation? Because I know how hard you've all been working on this. So just to throw it open to any officers first across the region. Anybody want to say anything further? Or should I just open it up for questions? Don't see anybody? No? Okay then, questions. Any questions from members on this item, please? No, I think it's self-explanatory. Oh, there we are, Liz.
That was really very useful. Can I ask a little bit more about the capacity issue you were talking about with the key challenges under that first mission? I'm sorry if I'm coming a bit late to this. What do you see the key challenges as being? Is that something to do with R&D? Is it workforce? Is it something else? You know, is it all the above, really?
I think it's all of the above, and some of them are being addressed, aren't they? So, you know, some of the skills initiatives that are being taken forward by the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership are very much in the spirit of addressing some of that. I think we saw it as being partly about things like skills and so on, but also about investment appetite and the confidence that the private sector might have to invest relative to other places. And it wasn't intended within the REDP. None of that was intended as a negative comment. It was on the contrary, really. It was about sort of saying, if this is something that we're going to adopt within the REDP as being the first mission, if you like, and it's based on evidence of both the research assets and the practical physical assets of the region, then that's something that will need significant strategic leadership and investment, because it's a really competitive place, and there'll be folks in, I don't know, Scotland and the Northwest and various other places that will be having the same sort of conversation, and it's about how you stay ahead of the game.
Okay, Les? Any other member? No? Thanks again then, Ross, for that. And I'm sure this regional economic strategy is on track. I mean, challenges ahead, I'm sure of that, and look forward to future updates going forward. So thank you very much. I'll move on to agenda item 5 then, and that is an agenda item is to receive a verbal update again from Paul Relf in regard to the existing regional programmes. So over to Paul, please.
Thank you, Chair. So what I was hoping to do is give you a brief verbal update on the two of the key regional programmes that are helping to deliver the strategy that Ross has just outlined. And I guess quite important to keep in mind the 3 missions there, because they'd be really important in guiding the way that particularly the Shared Prosperity Fund and the Transforming Towns programme are being deployed. And I guess what I'd say on that, notwithstanding it has taken some time to get the programme set up, it's still a more condensed time frame than would happen with other similar programmes, and partly because the greater awareness of the pressures that are outlined in that strategy make it more straightforward. Notwithstanding, we could always do with more funding, but given that funding is so scarce, being able to channel the funding effectively to what is a relatively tight timescale in the creation of an entirely new programme and getting it deployed. So the routes, you'll probably be familiar already, the broad structure of the Shared Prosperity Fund in South West Wales. So we have a series of anchor projects on the key themes and linked to the strategy. Principal among those would be the business development and employability strands. And I guess the theme throughout this as well is that the programme is planned at a regional level. It sits within that really important strategic context, but delivery can be tailored and is being tailored quite deliberately within each local authority area. So each LA can move at the pace that is most appropriate to that local authority and the scale of budget allocation that they were granted by UK government. So the regional dimension is there, but to ensure that there's, broadly speaking, a parity of offer, but equally there is the flexibility to scale the pace and the design according to local need. So, for example, Neath Talbot, very much a focus on the energy side of things and targeted open call to accompany the anchor delivery around that specific theme. Similarly, Swansea, Carmarthenshire, Pembrokeshire, we've all got slight variations in the way we've gone about it. But what's reassuring is that even with the open calls, the nature of the projects that applicants have been submitting are broadly along the lines of the strategy. So people have been heeding the advice that was given early on in the programme. They are reading the strategy documents, and the projects that are coming in are consistent with the delivery we need to start the implementation of the strategy. Clearly, it goes way beyond what is now 18 months or so of funding can provide, but really important that we have actually got some resources we can target quickly. I'd say as well, the anchor design was partly about the fact that we do have small teams in each LA already, so it was partly around making sure that activity could start reasonably quickly, particularly for the creation and distribution of grants to small businesses and in the area of community development. So I guess that design means that existing staff could make a start on that work, notwithstanding there are obviously always recruitment difficulties, but then as recruitment takes place, the programme can pick up pace and delivery proceeding. And I think it's fair to say the level of commitment across the programme is very high. And certainly in most of the LAs, we're almost fully committed between the anchor projects and the open calls, with part of that being allocated to grant schemes that are open on a as needs basis. There are still some open calls to be concluded, particularly in Pembrokeshire. I think there's a further 7 million to allocate there, and that exercise is due to be completed by Christmas, as I understand it. But broadly speaking, the funding is moving quickly, and the LAs have worked well together in getting everything to the point it's at. And I guess the most important part of that is that, whereas in maybe some of the larger programmes, the smaller organisations are the last to benefit, in this arrangement, they've been the first to benefit. So hopefully, notwithstanding there have been delays in getting it established, the first money out of the door has been to micro businesses and community organisations, which are really the bedrock of the regional economic delivery plan. The other thing I was going to say is we will be able to provide you in for the future meetings with a comprehensive overview of all of the finances in detail, spend to date, and all the outputs being achieved. The systems have been built. The first claim period ends on the 17th of October. So once those submissions are in, we'll be collating that data and turning out a regional report that covers the performance of the programme across the region. And we'll try to address as part of that how it's contributing to the delivery of the economic delivery plan in particular, to give you a flavour of how that's going. And that it's fair to say that already good outputs to show, and there are good case studies coming through already that we'll be able to share shortly. That'll be hopefully done by early November, so it'll be available in time for the next meeting of this committee. I'll move quickly, if I might, onto the Transforming Towns programme, and then I'll take any questions. So the way we've deployed Shared Prosperity Fund was built on the working model we've had with the Transforming Towns capital programme with Welsh Government for several years now, with Swansea in the lead. It's a rolling capital programme of around £9 million per year. And I would say the relationship between the four local authorities is very mature now, in being realistic about the challenges faced by capital project delivery that in no way respects financial years. Capital projects can be beset by all sorts of problems that are out of any organisation's control, be it weather, an unforeseen planning issue, a pandemic, all these different things that can affect the timing of projects. So we maintain a continual pipeline of schemes, both at the larger scale of over £250,000 grant, termed the strategic projects, of which we have numerous examples around the region, lots completed in the bag and many more on site. So things like the biophilic building in Swansea, the South Quay developments in Haverfordwest, the Market Street North in Carmarthenshire, and many other examples. You've got the smaller level grants for dealing with smaller targeted interventions in our various town centres, as well as then some of the larger strategic projects which run often into the millions, but by their very nature are complex and don't necessarily neatly fit the way that the funding gets allocated centrally. I guess that there is perhaps a slight difference in the level of flexibility, perhaps, between the way we're able to deploy the Shared Prosperity Fund versus transforming towns, but the tools that the programme makes available are having a visible effect on all our town centres in the region, and again help to reinforce the 3 missions of the economic delivery plan. It's worth reflecting as well, the town centre loan, zero interest loan option has been very helpful, certainly in Swansea, but I know in the other LAs as well, in unlocking private sector developments by helping to stave off that interest, particularly in the current climate, to enable schemes to be cash flowed in the early stages. So the range of tools we have in the region, between the gap filling that Shared Prosperity Fund is able to provide and the funding through Welsh Government for the Transforming Towns programme, do give us good vehicles to be able to deliver against the strategy, albeit with the caveat that funding is often stop-start. So having the ability to be shovel-ready is really, really important, and using all the funds we have to best effect to make sure that happens. I would say in my career, this is the best place we've been in a long time, in terms of having those tools available and the resources to deliver and to show what local government can achieve collaboratively, as well as working in a very localised way. So hopefully we've got the balance right on that, and as I say, we'll be able to provide more detailed updates on the programmes at future meetings. I'll stop there, Chair, if that's okay. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Paul, and I'm sure all members will agree, and everybody on the call, how important the work is to hear about our existing regional programmes and updates for those programmes. And it's also interesting to understand that you cut your cloth to suit each local authority, and the working relationship you have with officers right across the region, that's exceptional. And when it comes to skills and upskilling and jobs, I mean, with what we know is going on in the region, you have to make that work for you as well, to find the right training and jobs in various parts of the region. So thank you for that. It's really, really interesting update. We're opening up to questions for members now. If there's anybody, I think it's, again, very self-explanatory and excellent work going on. Any member want to ask a question? Any officer want to add anything? No? Okay then. That's again, thank you, Paul. I don't know if you want to add anything further before I move on to the next item.
That's all, thanks, Chair.
Chair, I think Rachel wanted to come in.
Right, okay, I didn't see the hand. There, I can see it now. Over to you, Rachel. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Sorry, Chair, I waved instead of putting a hand up. That was just my immediate reaction. I suppose it was just to endorse what Paul has said. I think he's doing a super job of coordinating things on a regional basis. I guess it's just to flag that, and I totally agree with having the additional resource is really enabling us to make a difference at the local level, particularly with our relationship with local businesses, which, following on from COVID, where we developed strong relationships across the business sector, it's great to be able to continue with that and have business support teams in place for the first time in many years. I guess it would be wrong not to highlight that as fast as we've got this funding, it could be taken away from us as well. And just to highlight the risk that we're raising expectations. We're doing some really good stuff locally and across the board, across all 4 local authorities. but that could be taken away from us within 18 months if there's no continuity of funding. So I guess for the CJC to be aware, and also I suppose for onward messaging as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that's a good point you've raised there. You know, funding is critical in their resources. We need them, but what you're doing with them is just as important. And so far, you know, everybody's doing an excellent job. This item is also only for information, so therefore we'll note the update. Thank you once more, Paul. Thank you very much. Item 6 is the Freeport update. This agenda item is to receive an update on the Freeport. Simon Brennan and Rachel Moxie will be providing a presentation on this item, please. So over to you both in whichever way you're planning it. Simon first, perhaps.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in the spirit of collaboration, Rachel and I will be doing a joint presentation today, just to show you how the relationships have matured in the region. So, good afternoon, everybody. We're just going to give you a brief update today on the current position in respect of the Freeports and the Freeport process, if you like. As you may be aware, the Celtic bid scored highest of the 3 Welsh bids and went forward together with the Anglesey bid. So we are now making good progress in terms of the delivery element of it. After some delays, DLUC, which is the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Committees, and Welsh Government have issued sort of embargoed draft guidance to us. And although there are a few issues left to be resolved that we'll pick up later on in the presentation, we are working our way through that. We're just waiting for the final detail to be agreed. The Freeport team, consisting of reps from ourselves in Neath, Talbot, Pembrokeshire, ABP and Milford Haven Port, are currently working with KPMG and the interim Celtic Freeport Chief Exec David Gwynn to draft the outline business case, which we're hoping to submit before the end of this calendar year. So probably around end of November, early December, we hope. As you may have picked up in the news recently, in terms of floating offshore wind, there were no bids submitted by developers in the recent auction process. Whilst that is a little bit concerning in itself, we are assured that the process is being revised, and the process, which includes agreeing the contracts for difference, which sets the strike rates, will be a little more sympathetic to the developers next time around. So, as we mentioned above, we are currently working through the outline business case and looking at a number of areas, particularly around skills, innovation, planning, etc. And we'll be, Rachel and myself, along with others, have been given our homework to come up with some draft segments that will fit within that outline business case. In terms of the presentation, in terms of the outline business case and the next steps, we've got the outline business cases, they going in the next few months, and then hopefully in Q1 we will have approval then from Welsh Government and DLUC, and then moving on then in sort of Q1, Q2 to the Treasury approval and the tax site designation. In that respect, we've been working with landowners. We've engaged with over 20 landowners across both Neath, Talbot and over in Pembrokeshire to get the tax site agreements in place, which are a critical part of the next process, and which we have to get in place before we proceed. Then we'll proceed to full business case in terms of submission and writing that in the Q3, Q4, with the potential for the Freeport to start trading in late 2024, and for the seed capital of around 25 million to be released by UK government, that will allow us then to undertake a range of works, including sort of feasibility studies, but also infrastructure, etc. And that money will be spent across both Neath, Talbot and Pembrokeshire. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who's going to pick up on some of the sort of current issues that we're either wrestling with or things that we need to bring forward, and probably to, I suppose, bring forward then some of the discussions that we're having to ensure that the benefits, if you like, that will be generated by the free port. We all realise that's not going to be restricted to Neath, Talbot or Pembrokeshire, or probably even to the South West Wales region. That will be felt across South Wales generally, and to make sure those benefits are realised across the board. So I'll just hand over to Rachel, who will pick up on some of the risks.
So Simon's told you all the comfy stuff, which is all very positive, and I've got to be the bringer of doom. Sorry, although I think these are manageable risks as well. As many of you will be aware, and particularly this is particularly pertinent to ourselves and Neath Talbot at the moment. There are high-level discussions taking place about the non-domestic rates and the proportion of that which would actually end up with authorities in Pembrokeshire and Neath Talbot. There are live discussions taking place between Welsh Government and UK Government, and it's just important to be aware of that. We have had the guidance as Simon has outlined, but there are certain key decisions that are to be made over the next couple of months. The timescales are quite challenging as well. You've heard from Paul this afternoon talking about the delivery of Shared Prosperity Fund. There are all kinds of regional programmes that we're involved in, transforming towns, etc. It's the same. You'll notice it's the same people that come on all of these calls. So we've got a lot of responsibility to deliver some quite heavy documentation in a short period of time. And whilst we have the support of consultant teams and they're very good and very experienced, there are certain things that can only come from the authorities themselves. So there's a big ask in terms of turning around that documentation in the time frame. Simon presented to you the timing of the next steps as well. We are cognizant of there being a general election sometime next year, and that could have a profound effect upon some of the timelines around free ports as well. Obviously, there are differing policies with different governments. Closer to home, we've heard about the changes at Tata recently, and obviously, I suppose the free port takes on an even more prominent and important position given that context. And obviously a certain amount of uncertainty there and some significant change. Simon mentioned as well the failure of the latest contract for difference auction that took place, where no bids were made for any of those contracts for difference from floating offshore wind companies. Whilst that gave a message back to government about the fact that the pricing was wrong in those contracts for difference, there is certainly some doubt that will place in the minds of investors as well, and we're conscious of all of that. So working closely with industry to try and mitigate and hopefully that will have some impact. Industry, interestingly, thinks that this will force acceleration by government, but we haven't seen anything in that direction yet. There are probably other areas that you would like to discuss as well. So Simon and I will do our best to answer any questions that you might have. Conscious we've also got people like Will Bramble, Richard Brown on the call, who may also want to intervene in answering some of those questions. But over to all of you, and we'll do our best to come up with answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Simon. Good cop, bad cop, is there? Can I just say, we were opening up to members. Obviously, Rob's not here, but Carmarthen and Swansea play major roles. So we spoke about displacement, etc. And I know they're keen partners and fully involved in this process as we speak. So it's just important to recognise that as well, because that has always been the case from day one, really. So I'll just open it up to questions from members. I see David got his hand up now first. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much. It's not a question really, but just I'm glad you pointed that out, that it's not just us two that are in this agreement. it's a ripple effect. It's going to be all of South West Wales, and I think we're all going to benefit from it, not just the ones that are on the document signatures. I just want to really thank everybody, the team that was involved in putting this all together over the last couple of years. And it has been going on for quite a while, but I know that the amount of work that officers in Pembrokeshire have done has been tremendous, and I know that sort of the same must go for your authority as well. So I just wanted to say a very big thank you, because I really do think that the Freeport coming to South West Wales is going to be a tremendous asset to not only to the financial side, but to the business, to the employment side, the cultural side. You've got these companies coming into the area, bringing new people in. They all demand houses, they all demand wage packets at the end of the day. And it's all being spent in our local economy. So I just wanted to thank the staff for all their efforts and to be assured to everybody that it isn't just our two authorities that are going to benefit. It's the 4 in the region and beyond as well, I believe. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'm sure we'll all echo that. And if Rob was there, I'd be saying the same thing. The work that the officers undertake. There was one point I forgot to mention. I think is critical. I think Rachel touched on it. The NDR is, rates is critical. The retention of those rates. I mean, you know, and it's a plea really to support that happening for us, because a lot more can be done, and that's across all the region, of course. Okay, and any other officers or members? Will, over to you, Will, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to take up too much time, but as a member of the project board of the Freeport, I just thought I'd make one additional comment, and that's on the concept of displacement and additionality. And it's interesting when one reflects on the presentation we had at the start of the afternoon on the analysis by the consultant on slight job decline in the region. And what the Freeport brings here is the opportunity for an increase in jobs that would not otherwise have existed. And I've yet to see any evidence of any material displacements being created by the opportunities in the Freeport development. Indeed, quite the contrary, I think it will bring job opportunity to the region that would not otherwise have existed. And I think this is very important, because I have heard some discussion in the wider context in the country about, oh, it's just going to bring large displacement. It is not. And in the context of the presentation earlier this afternoon, with the objective analysis that there's a declining job opportunity in the region, this is really, really important. And particularly when you superimpose that on the demographics in the region, where you see an increasing aging population. And I'm not necessarily saying it's unique across the region, it differs from area to area, and a marginally declining children population, certainly in the rural areas. This is again another very important dynamic to the economy that would not otherwise necessarily have existed, and certainly not at the expense of displacement elsewhere. At least that's what all of our analysis indicates. That was it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. And that's the point I probably could have made, that you are right. The analysis shows that's not going to be the case. It's just trying to keep it there, mindful of it. And if anybody got evidence, you know, we can work through it as the Freeports continue to develop, I suppose. But it just let me finish by saying thank you to the officers. Thank you for the presentation. I think, hold on, there's a few people got their mics on. Oh, that's it. That's better. Somebody's knocked it off. How was you again, David? I know where to go. I know the culprits on this tonight.
Sorry, okay. Sorry, the gardener's in.
There we are. That's lovely. Thank you. So nobody else got anything on this? Okay, then this item again is for information. So therefore we'll note the update. Thank you both once more for the update. Item 7 is the investment zone status. So we will now move on to the update of the investment zone status in Wales and the region's position. So Jason Jones will be providing this update. Over to you, Jason, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief update from me today, just to raise awareness around the investment zone and the region's proposals. So for those of you not familiar with investment zones, UK government announcement earlier this year, 8 zones have been allocated in England. We're yet to have full clarity in Wales. Discussions ongoing between UK government and Welsh government, with the suggestion that there'll be at least one investment zone in Wales. As a region and the partnership between Carmarthenshire, County Council and Swansea, we want to preempt that by submitting, for want of a better description, a prospectus document to Welsh Government, indicating what we can do in the region, and it's very much linked to the Freeport status, adding value, and the final piece of the jigsaw, addressing the displacement issue, looking at opportunities to connect our energy generation potential, so linking with the REDP Mission 1 that we heard Ross talk about earlier, and we've had subsequent discussions on building research and innovation capacity and linking major sites and industries. So that green growth investment prospectus is being finalised, and we're aiming to bring it back to the board. I think it's the 24th of October meeting with further detail around that. So as I said, just wanted to raise that awareness of what's happening and further detail to follow very shortly. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, may I add, as I'm sitting next to Jason?
Yeah, go on, Wendy.
It's just, I think it comes back to your point regarding the Freeport and the regional approach, and it's indeed it is a regional approach, and we want to make sure we support both Pembrokeshire and Neath Talbot in their aspirations. This obviously is hopefully a proposal that we will, when we're ready, submit to Welsh Government to show that the region is indeed ready for investment zone. But it is also a position statement where Swansea and Carmarthenshire sit in terms of the green economy. So that also provides a good template for that integration with the Freeport plans. And I'm sure in time will what would be useful, I think, is that we have some specific governance and regional officers around the Freeport. So moving on to the next stage, we can ensure that that collaboration is robust and that we help one another in meeting the aims of your bids.
Thank you, Wendy. Good points raised there. I mean, the investment zones are an opportunity as well, and it'd be nice to see further information exactly where these are lined up, I suppose, isn't it, with the Freeport and the economic benefits that we all want for each other. I see Robert got his hand up. Over to you, Robert.
Yeah, I think with the Freeports going to Pembroke and Neath Talbot, I think it's very important that we take advantage of investment zones and that we try and bring as much investment into the region as possible. I fully agree with the other comments I made when I don't see any decline by Freeports in Pembroke or Neath Talbot. You know, the public don't recognise boundaries, and what we need is a very strong region going forward. And that as an investment zone, we can take advantage. What we need is national companies bringing head offices into our region so that we can take advantage of that. A lot of Swansea's in the city deal has been putting in offices, office blocks, grade A office blocks, because to get national companies or even the civil service to move into our region, we need good quality communications, the investment in digital and the investment in that office. And I see our region now with the Freeports should be taken advantage of an investment zone. And the only way we can do it is all of us pulling together, not worrying about the boundaries, but worrying about the region and how we sell ourselves, in the region. So I'm really looking forward to a strong case going forward for an investment zone to take advantage.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for that. And one thing sometimes we're all afraid to say is that let's not let politics stand in the way of progress. You know, when you talk about the collaboration, working together, let's put it into practice, isn't it? So that all our regions, we all represent the same people who live in the areas right across Wales. So that's a good point. We need to capitalise on anything and everything that is available to us. We got the right people. Certainly, we got the best officers across the region to deliver on a lot of what our programmes are. So, no, good points made there. And I totally agree with you on some of the points you raised. Anybody else got anything on this agenda item now? No, I don't see anything. Okay, this item again is for information, so therefore we will note the update. Thank you for the update, both. Okay then. Sorry, both. Jason, sorry. Thank you, Jason. Item 8 is the corporate plan. So this is the final item this afternoon. It's regarding a group discussion in regards to the corporate plan 2023-2024 as priorities and proposal for a future works programme. So Wendy, if I could bring you in this for you to explain first of how we look to deliver the corporate plan and how a group discussion may go forward. Over to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Steve. I wasn't aware that I was taking this item, but I will. So it was based on a discussion that we as officers had at the Botanic Gardens last week. We all met to discuss what the priorities were with them moving forward. And I think some of the items are what we've already discussed today. I'm going to look at Louise as well in terms of the notes and what we agreed at that meeting. But I think, for one, is that some of the priorities that SQW have highlighted in their report today and some of the priorities of the region moving forward, I think should form the basis of that forward work programme, alongside what the corporate strategy and your corporate plan is for the corporate joint committee. So, Louise, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we agreed was that we would potentially present some of those priorities alongside the agenda for the next meeting.
Yes,
for members to discuss.
Yes.
So, Councillor and Chair, that is what and where we were at the last meeting. I don't know, Louise, if there's anything that I've missed in terms of the priorities, but it's very much along the lines of the agenda that we have today, the SQW challenges that we face as a region, and also the corporate plan and what the priorities are that fall out of that within the economic wellbeing focus. And
yes,
that we draft and pull together a proposed forward plan for members to consider, Chair, and we bring that to the next meeting with your agreement.
Yeah, Wendy, thank you for that. And that's what I was going to say. If members had questions or suggestions for the forward work programme, obviously this to be noted this afternoon, and they can be added to the document in readiness for the next meeting. I think that's probably a way forward. So I just have a look if members support that, or do you want to raise a question? Anybody? Louise, coming in then?
One more point as well to add to what Wendy was saying as well, and it sort of reflects on Paul's update, is around the future funding, because obviously the funding is taking us up to 2025, so it's looking at what's on the horizon.
I think.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Wendy, go on.
Sorry, Chair. I think that for this group, one of the key factors is the flexibility, because the economic development doesn't, you know, it's a bit square peg, round hole, and we need to make sure that as a committee we react to what the challenges are that we're all facing in the region, and sometimes those can change quite quickly, as we've seen, cost of living. You know, if there are any immediate challenges that anybody would like the group to support with, then I think we need to have that in mind as a committee, that we can be as flexible as we can so that we can react as robustly as possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, this is another one of a number of CJC subcommittees all feeding into the CJC that haven't got any resources or of note then, I should say, isn't it? And we transport is one of the lead projects that we're embarking on. So you are right. I suppose it's good to have ideas. It's good to want to put the world to right through these subcommittees, but we got to be mindful of what we're able to do. It's always better, I think, is to deliver on something and have an array of projects that you don't have the outcomes or delivering on. So I think we can leave that in your hands, Wendy and Louise and officers to direct us and manage the best that we can do for this subcommittee. I see Robert got his hand up as well. Robert, come back to you.
Yeah, I think we've always got to follow the money. You know, the money coming direct from central government to local authorities through like the shared prosperity funds, etc. I think it's been a lot better than it going to perhaps Welsh government, then passed down to us. You know, it's not timely. I think it's been far more timely getting it direct and being able to administer it locally and quicker. What we got to be making sure, though, that we do get our full share, you know, coming forward as a region to make sure that we can deliver. I think we've all got big proposals that we want to follow. Without the money, though, we can't deliver anything. So it's we got to follow the money. And I think the communications of how the transport links between our regions are very important for us to prosper, especially, you know, with the free ports. Having access to those free ports is greatly, you know, is really important. And the, you know, further in the digital technology as well, to making sure that we are, you know, up there with the best as a region in the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Robert. Some good points made there, and I'm sure we got the capabilities within our officers and our regional partners. So unless anybody got anything else on this item, Louise, we've got a way forward for that corporate plan. Are you happy, or did you want to say anything on that before I move on?
No, nothing from me, Chair.
There we are. Everybody else happy? Don't see any. Oh, Wendy, go on.
Just to add, Chair, sorry, that if anybody following today's meeting has specific topics that they please feel free to email myself or Louise, and we'll make sure that they're put into the corporate plan for circulation. Into the board work programme, sorry, my correction. Yeah,
no, that's good. I thank you for that. I did say we added to the readiness for the next meeting, so please do that by all means. Okay then, agenda item 9, you'll all be pleased to know, because it is a Monday, beginning of the week. Urgent items. I have no urgent items this afternoon. It only remains for me to thank you for your attendance. Sorry for the glitch in the very beginning, but as you know, we got to be correct and got to. So David, don't let that happen again. You was all right this time. No, you was all right this time. Thank you all for your attendance, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evenings. Nice to see you all. Talbot.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks, Doug.